I don't get a chance too often to introduce longtime friends, but in this case, unless I'm jumping the gun and she refuses to acknowledge the fact that we worked together at KTAR for a long time, let me intro a familiar name to you, Pamela Hughes. How long were you in the news department at KTAR?
Close to 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you decided to make a transition and make a change in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about that briefly.
Yeah, I left the newsroom. I left telling people what was wrong with the world, and I decided to start a career with helping people find what's right in their own world as a life coach.
Yeah, and you're using the phrase that often causes me to go into muscle spasms, life coach.
Yeah.
Because an awful lot of folks, not all of them, but an awful lot of folks call themselves life coaches because they haven't been able to come up with another title for what they do, and they don't really have a whole lot of experience. Mm-hmm. But you do, and you're using your experience on Saturday the 9th,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Your experience in one specific area that you wish hadn't happened in your life. You're talking to folks who show up because they're talking about their own losses, and you experienced one of your own. Tell us about that.
Yeah, you know, we all experience loss, especially with COVID the last couple of years. We've all experienced a variety of different losses, but the loss that you're referring to, Pat, was the suicide of my brother-in-law. And that changed a lot for our family, and it really changed a lot for my perspective. And I know that there'll be a lot of people at the symposium who have had a loss of a loved one, and we'll be talking about that kind of grief, as well as a loss of identity, which is another loss that I had experienced just a few years ago when I decided to leave the news department and become a life coach.
And you're inviting the audience to something that instantly causes most folks to say, no, I think I'll avoid an entire day about loss mm-hmm. and grief, and why do I need that in my life? And you're telling us that that's going to be a very different experience.
Absolutely. Like, loss and grief are a part of life that we're not ever really taught how to manage and deal with. We shove it away, we avoid it, we run from it, we distract from it. But the only way on the other side of it is through it. And it doesn't have to be a painful kind of experience. It's recognizing that part of life is hard. Part of life is difficult and painful. In fact, life is 50-50. It's 50% positive and it's 50% negative.
But are you telling us as a life coach that we should pretend it doesn't hurt?
No, not at all. That like toxic positivity that can be found in a lot of different places is not beneficial. You have to feel that negative emotion and not run from it and pretend like it doesn't exist. What I'm telling you as a life coach is to feel it. The problem so many people have is they're afraid that if they actually welcome in the negativity, so to speak, they welcome in the disappointment, the hurt, the fear, that it's never going to go away. So they try to avoid it because if I allow it to be there, then it's always going to be there. And what I want to offer you is, if you think about like the best day of your life, you think about, like for me, it was like the birth of my daughter, like the happiest day of my life. That joy, as much as I love her, didn't last forever. The joy of that day didn't last forever. I can think of it and still experience joy, but the intensity of it isn't there. And the same thing happens with the worst day of your life. When you're in it, it is intense and it hurts, but it's not always going to be like that.
And by the way, if you are captured, as most people are whenever Pamela does public speaking, you'll find that the day is filled with interesting points of view, humor. I'll be there, and Rita Davenport will be there, and it's an all-day event taking place the 9th. At what time?
It's going to be starting in the morning, and it's going to be going all through the day.
Where?
It is at the Hilton Garden Inn in Tempe.
And do you know where we can find out more about it?
Melinda Vail's Coping with Melinda Vail. Let me make sure I've got that correct here, because I want to make sure people go and have a great time. It is melindavailscoping.com.
And yes, Melinda Vail, the medium, is one of the featured people, as you can see by the graphic that's up right now. It's a day that you'll never forget, because you'll want to remember. This is Pat McMahon, back in just a moment on The Daily Mix.